In every age, the people believe they elect their leaders, that history is shaped in public view. But behind the speeches, the parliaments, and the glowing lights of democracy, there exists another world, a hidden network of power, where decisions that shape nations are made behind closed doors. This is a realm of the shadow governments, the true power behind the throne. In this documentary, we pull back the curtain on the invisible hands that manipulate politics, economics, and even war. The story you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about history. Stay with us until the very end, and don't forget to subscribe to History Vault, where we uncover the truths the world doesn't want you to know. Your journey into the secret corridors of power begins now. Long before the dawn of modern democracy and transparent governance, true power was a secret currency traded in shadows. The kings and emperors we read about in history books were often mere figureheads, symbols crafted for public consumption. Behind their thrones lurked hidden forces, secret councils, trusted advisors, and covert alliances that shaped empires from the darkness. These ancient architects of power were the original shadow governments, manipulating political, military, and economic affairs far from the eyes of the masses. Across the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, the first great empires flourished not solely by royal decree, but through the influence of elite inner circles. These were not ordinary advisors. They were priesthoods, military generals, and noble families wielding influence that rivaled and sometimes eclipsed that of the monarchs themselves. Their power was rooted in secrecy. The common people believed the king alone commanded armies and dispensed justice, but in reality, decisions about war, diplomacy, and succession were often negotiated in private chambers. These unseen hands operated with precision, ensuring their authority remained concealed while the throne projected the illusion of absolute power. In ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, the role of priests and temple elites extended far beyond religious rites. They controlled vast resources and held sway over political decisions, intertwining spiritual authority with governance. Similarly, the Egyptian pharaohs, though revered as gods on earth, depended heavily on a bureaucracy of viziers and priestly classes who managed everything from tax collection to foreign affairs. This delicate balance ensured that power was diffused through a network of hidden influencers, safeguarding the status quo while keeping the masses compliant. The Roman Republic offers perhaps the most illuminating example of early shadow governance. The Senate, a body of patricians and aristocrats, claimed to represent the people, yet its internal dynamics were a battleground of manipulation, alliances, and covert agendas. Senators wielded their influence to make or break emperors, control legislation, and direct military campaigns. Behind the public forums and grand speeches were secret negotiations and conspiracies that often decided Rome's fate. Assassinations of leaders like Julius Caesar were not spontaneous acts of rebellion, but carefully orchestrated moves by shadowy factions intent on preserving or shifting power. This ancient Roman model illustrates how political power can reside not in official titles, but within hidden networks pulling the strings. Medieval Europe's feudal system further entrenched the concept of hidden authority. Kings may have worn crowns and held courts, but their power was often circumscribed by the influence of feudal lords, bishops, and secretive orders such as the Knights Templar. These entities controlled vast lands, armies, and wealth, operating through clandestine meetings and secret alliances. Political intrigue was a currency of this era, where the fate of kingdoms was determined behind closed doors, far from public scrutiny. The Church, too, was a potent shadow power, shaping political decisions across Europe with its moral authority and control over information. Monarchs often found themselves negotiating with or manipulated by these unseen powers, illustrating the layered complexity of governance hidden from the public eye. In the East, the imperial courts of China presented a similarly intricate web of hidden power. Emperors, revered as the son of heaven, sat at the apex of the state, but eunuchs, court officials, and secret advisors often wielded greater influence behind the scenes. These factions engaged in relentless power struggles, buying loyalties, and orchestrating betrayals to control imperial policy. The imperial bureaucracy was a labyrinth of secret alliances and covert operations, where the fate of millions was decided not by decree, but by whispered conversations in shadowed halls. The invisible hand of these power brokers shaped military campaigns, succession crises, and foreign relations, while the common people remain unaware of their masters' true identities. What binds all these historical examples is a shared blueprint. Power is rarely exercised in plain sight. Whether in ancient Mesopotamia, Rome, medieval Europe, or imperial China, real authority has often resided in secret networks rather than in public offices. This pattern reveals a timeless truth about political power. It thrives on secrecy, manipulation, and control behind the scenes. These ancient shadow governments perfected the art of operating in the dark, creating illusions of transparency while consolidating power in the hands of a few. Understanding these ancient roots is crucial to comprehending the political conspiracies and hidden governments of today. The tactics forged centuries ago, secret councils, manipulation of public opinion, control of military and economic resources, have evolved but never disappeared. Modern deep states, intelligence agencies, and global elites trace their lineage back to these earliest forms of covert power. The ancient empire's lessons echo through history, warning us that what appears on the surface, the elections, public debates, and official decrees, may only be the tip of the iceberg. Beneath lies a shadow realm where true decisions are made, shaping the course of nations and the lives of billions. This hidden history demands our attention because it challenges the very foundations of what we believe about governance, democracy, and freedom. In tracing the ancient roots of hidden power, we peel back layers of deception and reveal the invisible architects of history. The crowns and titles may change, but the shadow governments endure, manipulating the world behind the throne. To uncover today's political conspiracies, we must first understand these origins, where power was never as straightforward as it seemed, and where history was shaped not by kings and presidents, but by those who mastered the shadows. In the modern era, the notion of power has evolved, but the shadows remain darker and deeper than ever. Beyond the visible structures of elected governments and official institutions, an invisible force quietly expands its reach: the deep state. Unlike democratically chosen leaders, the deep state is an unaccountable network of unelected officials, intelligence operatives, corporate elites, and bureaucrats who maintain control regardless of who holds office. This hidden machine operates silently, its gears turning beneath the surface of politics, shaping policies, manipulating outcomes, and steering nations without public consent. The rise of the deep state did not happen overnight. It is a result of decades of political maneuvering and institutional entrenchment. While the public debates election results and policy decisions, the deep state capitalizes on continuity, leveraging bureaucratic inertia and intelligence apparatuses to influence the course of history. Its agents are embedded in government agencies, military institutions, and multinational corporations, forming an interconnected web of power that transcends party lines and electoral cycles. This covert structure is often shielded by secrecy and classified information, making it nearly impossible for citizens or even elected officials to fully grasp its extent. The intelligence community, with its secret budgets and covert operations, plays a pivotal role. Agencies tasked with national security have amassed extraordinary powers: surveillance, clandestine interventions, and influence over foreign and domestic affairs, often without transparent oversight. These tools allow the deep state to act decisively behind closed doors, sometimes counter to the wishes of the very governments they serve. Corporate influence further deepens this network. Multinational corporations, wielding vast economic resources and lobbying power, align their interests with those of the deep state, creating a symbiotic relationship. Policies are crafted to benefit entrenched elites rather than the public, ensuring the perpetuation of a system that privileges a select few. This fusion of corporate might and bureaucratic authority creates a formidable force that resists reform and conceals its agenda behind layers of complexity. The deep state's resilience lies in its ability to transcend political upheavals. When leaders change, when administrations fall, or when public opinion shifts, the deep state remains steadfast, an invisible constant shaping the narrative and the policies. It can derail elected officials who threaten its interests through leaks, smear campaigns, or bureaucratic obstruction. This hidden power not only influences domestic politics, but also designs foreign interventions, often keeping nations locked in cycles of conflict to preserve its strategic and economic objectives. Historical examples reveal the deep state's shadowy hand. The Watergate scandal, often portrayed as a political crisis of one administration, was also a glimpse into the complex power struggles within the government's hidden layers. More recently, revelations about surveillance programs and covert operations demonstrate how intelligence agencies operate with minimal oversight, shaping both policy and public perception. Understanding the rise of the deep state is crucial in decoding the complexities of contemporary political conspiracies. It challenges the myth that democracy and transparency are the final arbiters of power. Instead, it exposes a parallel government, unseen, unaccountable, and often unchallenged, wielding influence that can override electoral mandates and public will. As this hidden machinery tightens its grip, it becomes increasingly urgent for citizens to question not only who they elect, but who truly governs behind the scenes. The rise of the deep state warns us that power often lies in the hands of those who operate far from the spotlight, steering the world in directions unseen and unknown. Throughout history, political conspiracies have cast long shadows over the course of nations, shaping events in ways that official records often fail to reveal. These conspiracies, carefully crafted plots, betrayals, and secret alliances, have repeatedly overturned governments, assassinated leaders, and rewritten the rules of power. Far from mere rumors or fiction, many of these dark machinations are backed by solid evidence, exposing the hidden forces that have steered history behind the veil of secrecy. One of the most notorious examples is the assassination of Julius Caesar. What appears as a sudden act of betrayal was, in truth, a meticulously planned conspiracy by Roman senators fearful of Caesar's rising power. This event did not merely remove a leader. It marked a turning point that ended the Roman Republic and ushered in the era of emperors. The conspirators believed they were saving the Republic, but their actions plunged Rome into decades of civil war. Proof that political conspiracies can have consequences far beyond their original intentions. Centuries later, the world witnessed equally intricate conspiracies during the turbulent eras of European monarchies. The Gunpowder Plot of 1605, in which a group of Catholic extremists attempted to blow up the English Parliament and assassinate King James I, is a prime example. Though the plot failed, it revealed the depths of religious and political tensions simmering beneath the surface of society. Tensions manipulated by various factions seeking power or revenge. In more recent history, the 20th century was rife with covert political conspiracies, often hidden behind layers of misinformation and classified operations. The 1953 CIA-backed coup in Iran, known as Operation Ajax, is a stark illustration. The democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown to protect Western oil interests, replaced by a regime more amenable to foreign powers. For decades, this conspiracy remained buried, shaping Middle Eastern geopolitics and fueling anti-Western sentiments that persist today. Similarly, during the Cold War, numerous covert operations exemplified the dark side of political power. Intelligence agencies orchestrated coups, assassinations, and propaganda campaigns across Latin America, Africa, and Asia, all in the name of ideological dominance. These conspiracies blurred the lines between national security and imperial ambition, revealing how shadow governments manipulate global events while keeping the public in the dark. Even within democratic societies, political conspiracies have often undermined the very systems meant to protect liberty. Watergate, the scandal that led to President Nixon's resignation, was more than a break-in. It exposed a web of illegal surveillance and political sabotage. The scandal illustrated how those in power could misuse state resources to suppress opposition and control narratives. Beyond government actions, conspiracy theories themselves, whether grounded in truth or speculation, shape public perception and political discourse. From the secret societies like the Illuminati to alleged globalist cabals, these ideas tap into a deep-seated distrust of authority. While some conspiracies are unfounded, many others have kernels of truth, demanding rigorous investigation and awareness. Political conspiracies remain a persistent force in the modern era. They influence elections, legislation, and international relations, often hidden beneath layers of bureaucracy, media manipulation, and classified information. The challenge lies in discerning fact from fiction and understanding that behind many headlines, there are shadowy agendas at work. By examining documented cases and unveiling the covert operations of history, we begin to see a pattern. Political conspiracies are not aberrations, but tools wielded by those seeking control power beyond the reach of public scrutiny. They remind us that history is often written by those who win, not necessarily by those who are truthful. Behind every economic boom and bust, every market crash and financial surge, there exists a hidden force pulling strings far beyond the visible realm of stock exchanges and government budgets. Shadow governments do not limit their power to political manipulation alone. They infiltrate global economics with a precision that controls resources, shapes markets, and influences the wealth of nations. This invisible hand guides the flow of capital, commodities, and investments, often prioritizing the interests of a powerful few over the many. The intertwining of secret political power and global finance is no coincidence. Elite networks of financiers, bankers, and corporate magnates operate alongside covert government agencies, creating a symbiotic relationship that transcends borders and political systems. These power brokers manipulate currencies, orchestrate economic crises, and engineer market fluctuations to maintain control and maximize profit. The 2008 global financial crash, for example, exposed cracks in the system, yet many suspect it was also exploited by hidden actors who anticipated and benefited from the turmoil. Control over natural resources, such as oil, gold, and rare minerals, lies at the heart of this economic shadow governance. Throughout history, secret alliances and covert operations have been mounted to secure these assets. The resource-rich regions of the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America have been battlegrounds not just of armies, but of influence exerted by hidden networks seeking control over the planet's wealth. Wars, sanctions, and regime changes are often driven by economic motives masked as ideological or humanitarian concerns. Financial institutions, too, play a crucial role in this hidden economy. Global banks, hedge funds, and multinational corporations operate with an influence that often dwarfs that of elected governments. Through lobbying, campaign financing, and policy shaping, they ensure that regulations favor their interests, limiting oversight and accountability. Tax havens, offshore accounts, and shell companies enable vast sums of wealth to move unseen, evading public scrutiny and perpetuating inequality. The impact of this shadow economic power is felt by ordinary people worldwide. Economic policies dictated by hidden agendas can lead to austerity measures, unemployment, and social unrest. Meanwhile, the elites manipulate markets to safeguard their assets, ensuring their dominance remains unchallenged. This imbalance fuels distrust in governments and financial systems, breeding a fertile ground for conspiracy theories and calls for reform. Understanding the role of shadow governments in global economics is essential to grasping the full picture of modern power dynamics. The fusion of secret political influence and financial control creates a network that is both resilient and opaque. It moves quickly, adapting to crises and exploiting opportunities to tighten its grip, often behind a veil of legality and respectability. To challenge this hidden power requires vigilance, transparency, and a commitment to exposing the links between covert political forces and economic manipulation. As citizens, recognizing the economic dimension of shadow governments empowers us to question who truly benefits from the systems we rely on and what forces shape the wealth and poverty of nations. Throughout history, war has often been portrayed as the tragic result of conflicting ideologies or territorial disputes. Yet beneath this surface lies a more unsettling truth. Wars have frequently been manufactured, prolonged, or exploited as calculated tools by shadow governments to serve hidden agendas. Far from chaotic, these conflicts are meticulously orchestrated to maintain power, control resources, and reshape global order, often at a devastating cost to humanity. The manipulation of war as a political instrument dates back millennia. Ancient empires used military campaigns not only to expand their territories, but also to consolidate the influence of ruling elites behind the scenes. These rulers and their advisors understood that conflict could distract populations, suppress dissent, and justify the expansion of secretive powers. By creating external enemies, they strengthened internal control and masked the true intentions of their shadow governments. In more recent history, the two world wars exemplify how war can be influenced by hidden forces. Powerful industrialists and financiers profited immensely from arms production and wartime economies, blurring the lines between national interest and private gain. Behind closed doors, political conspirators engage in backroom deals, manipulating alliances and prolonging hostilities for economic and strategic benefits. The military-industrial complex emerged as a permanent fixture, intertwining corporate interests with government policies in ways seldom visible to the public. The Cold War period further revealed the dark art war as a political tool. Proxy wars in Asia, Africa, and Latin America were fought not for the ideals of democracy or communism, but to maintain spheres of influence dictated by unseen powers. Covert operations, coups, and assassination plots were part of a broader strategy to destabilize regions and install compliant regimes. These shadow wars left millions dead or displaced, their true causes hidden behind propaganda and misinformation. Economic interests are often the driving force behind conflicts that official narratives fail to fully disclose. Control over oil fields, mineral wealth, and strategic trade routes frequently underpins military interventions. Secret alliances and covert actions by shadow governments aim to secure these resources, ensuring that economic dominance accompanies political power. This manipulation of war for profit and influence exposes a grim reality. Human lives become collateral in pursuit of hidden agendas. Media and public opinion are carefully managed to sustain support for these conflicts. Propaganda campaigns, selective reporting, and censorship shape perceptions, turning complex geopolitical struggles into simplified narratives of good versus evil. This manufactured consensus allows shadow governments to act with impunity, avoiding scrutiny and accountability, while perpetuating cycles of violence. Recognizing war as a political tool demands a critical reassessment of history and current events. It challenges us to look beyond official explanations and question who truly benefits from conflict. Understanding the shadow government's role in orchestrating and exploiting war unveils the deeper forces shaping our world. Forces that operate not in the light of democracy, but in the darkness of hidden power. In today's hyper-connected world, information is power, but who controls that information? Shadow governments have long recognized that to maintain their grip on power, controlling the narrative is just as crucial as controlling armies or economies. Media and public opinion are weaponized tools, carefully manipulated to shape perceptions, silence dissent, and manufacture consent. This unseen battle for minds unfolds daily across newsrooms, social platforms, and entertainment, hiding the truth behind layers of propaganda and misinformation. The manipulation of media is not a modern invention. It has ancient precedents. Rulers throughout history understood that controlling what the public hears, sees, and believes was essential to sustaining authority. From royal decrees broadcast in town squares to pamphlets and newspapers in revolutionary times, propaganda shaped the collective consciousness. Today, this age-old tactic has evolved into sophisticated campaigns leveraging technology, data analytics, and psychological profiling to target and influence entire populations with precision. Shadow governments embed their influence deep within mainstream media outlets, influencing editorial decisions, framing political discourse, and even censoring inconvenient truths. Journalists and news organizations may unknowingly become pawns, or, in some cases, willing participants in this grand design. The result is a filtered reality where stories are selectively told, and narratives serve the interests of powerful elites rather than the public. Social media platforms, once heralded as tools of democratization, have become battlegrounds for disinformation. Coordinated campaigns spread falsehoods, sow division, and distract from critical issues. Algorithms prioritize sensationalism over substance, amplifying voices that align with hidden agendas. This digital manipulation shapes elections, fuels polarization, and erodes trust in independent journalism and institutions. Beyond deception, censorship plays a critical role in controlling public opinion. Whistleblowers exposing shadow governments are silenced, inconvenient facts buried, and critical voices marginalized. The public is fed a steady diet of distraction, celebrity gossip, manufactured scandals, and trivial controversies, while real stories of corruption and conspiracy remain hidden in plain sight. This control over media and public opinion is a cornerstone of shadow government's power. By shaping what people believe, they steer societies toward acceptance of policies and actions that might otherwise provoke outrage or resistance. The illusion of informed consent is maintained even as true democratic participation is undermined. Understanding this manipulation is vital to reclaiming truth and transparency. Media literacy, independent journalism, and critical thinking are powerful defenses against the engineered narratives designed to keep populations compliant. As viewers and citizens, Questioning the stories presented and seeking alternative sources becomes an act of resistance. The shadowy influence over media reminds us that information is never neutral. It is a battleground where control over minds often determines control over nations. To challenge the hidden powers, we must first uncover the invisible puppeteers shaping the stories we believe. Power in the modern world no longer respects borders. The shadow governments that manipulate nations and economies are part of a vast, interconnected global network of elites, power brokers who operate beyond the reach of any single government or law. This transnational web weaves together politicians, financiers, intelligence operatives, corporate moguls, and secret societies, all collaborating to shape the geopolitical landscape according to their shared interests. This global network thrives on secrecy and exclusivity. Behind closed doors in international summits, private clubs, and discreet meetings, these elites negotiate deals that rewrite the rules of power. They form alliances that transcend national loyalties, prioritizing wealth accumulation, control resources, and influence over populations above all else. Their operations are often shielded by diplomatic immunity, corporate legal structures, and classified information, rendering their actions virtually invisible to the public eye. Financial institutions form the backbone of this network. Megabanks and multinational corporations funnel trillions of dollars across borders, funding political campaigns, lobbying efforts, and covert operations. They exploit tax havens and offshore accounts to conceal assets and evade regulations, ensuring their influence remains unchecked. This economic power translates into political leverage, allowing these actors to shape policies and leadership selections worldwide. Intelligence agencies and military contractors are key players, executing covert missions and destabilizing governments that resist the network's agenda. From orchestrating coups to influencing elections, their reach extends into every corner of the globe. The lines between state and non-state actors blur, creating a shadow realm where accountability is non-existent. Secret societies and elite gatherings, from Bilderberg meetings to the Bohemian Club, serve as hubs for these power brokers to coordinate strategies and cement relationships. While often dismissed as conspiracy theories, leaked documents and whistleblower testimonies confirm the existence of these clandestine assemblies, underscoring the reality of a hidden global order. The consequences of this interconnected network are profound. Decisions affecting billions, wars, economic policies, climate action are made not in public forums, but in private rooms where these elites convene. Their influence perpetuates inequality, suppresses dissent, and undermines the sovereignty of nations, all while maintaining a facade of democracy and national interest. For the ordinary citizen, this global network of power brokers represents a daunting challenge. It demands vigilance, transparency, and collective action to hold these invisible rulers accountable. Understanding their existence is the first step toward reclaiming agency and demanding a world governed by justice rather than shadow. As we unravel the threads of this vast network, we expose the true architects of our time, the unseen forces shaping history and deciding the fate of humanity behind the veil of secrecy. You just glimpse a side of history rarely told in classrooms or on the evening news. If shadow governments truly exist, then what we call freedom may be far more fragile than we imagine. The forces pulling the strings may be invisible, but their effects are felt in every corner of our lives. In the prices we pay, the wars we fight, and the leaders we trust. The next time you watch a political speech, ask yourself, who really wrote those words? If you want to keep uncovering the untold truths and hidden chapters of our past, subscribe now to History Vault. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode, because the stories we reveal here might just change the way you see the world forever.